So Ajahn Chah was born in Ubon province in northeast Thailand. And I think the important thing for people to know about northeast Thailand is it's ethnically different, separate from central Thailand, and in fact was separated from central Thailand by thick malarial forests for most of history of the country. And so the people there are ethnically Lao rather than Thai. They speak a Lao dialect, and there's always a sense of some sense of separation. And Thai people have somewhat looked down on Isan people in the past, and you could almost say they looked upon northeast Thailand as Siberia, and people nobody would ever think of going there, and the people there kind of unsophisticated, unintelligent, those kinds of prejudices. But northeast Thailand is also the place where most of the great teachers who we look up to as enlightened beings came from, including Ajahn Chah. And if you look on the production of arahants and enlightened beings as significant, you could say that it's a great world power. I certainly look at it in that way. So Isan has some more hilly areas to the north. 100 years ago it was quite thickly forested, but in the south of Isan, that's the word by which northeast Thailand is referred, it's been cultivated for quite a long time, formerly part of the Angkor Wat Empire way back, hundreds of years ago. And the part that Ajahn Chah grew up in is called Ubon. Ubon is a Thai derivation of a Pali word, Upala, meaning lotus. And the area where he was brought up is quite a flat area, and it's characterized by the River Moon, which is a tributary of the Mekong. It flows through Ubon province to the east, where it flows into the Mekong, flowing southwards, and the Mekong provides the border between Thai and Lao, and that's about 100 kilometers away from the city of Ubon. Whereas 100 kilometers to the south, you reach the line of hills, the range of hills, which provide the border between Thailand and Cambodia. So it's in a kind of little corner of the southern part of northeast Thailand. Soil's very, very poor. Growing rice is difficult. The sticky rice that grows can only be harvested once a year. Very little irrigation possible. So life has been tough for people in that area. Ajahn Chah was born in a small village called Ban Gor, which is a few kilometers to the south of Ubon and on the other side of the river. And he was born on the 17th of June 1918 into quite a wealthy family by the rural standards of those times, meaning quite a large portion of land to cultivate. Well, I say large, it may be quite a few acres, not talking about hundreds of acres, and some cattle and tobacco plantation. And he was the fifth of 11 children. Again, as in most cultures at that time, families tended to be large because quite a high infant mortality rate and no social security network, so parents would be hoping that their children would look after them in their old age. And also, I think significantly, Thai and Lao people, I've said they're separate, but they come from, there's more unites them and separates them. They seem to have come from the same group of people in southern China originally. They love children, and so he would have been brought up in a very warm, supportive environment.
You mentioned that so many of the people, monks, or so rumored to be arahants come from this area, the Isan or even Ubon province where Ajahn Chah is from. What are some of the names that are rumored to have that kind of attainment?
Well, the names that we know about are the disciples of Ajahn Man, because previous to Ajahn Man, and he's living in the second half of the 19th century, first half of the 20th century. We just don't have any records. So some people believe that there was something new arose with Ajahn Man, and that there wasn't really any practice going on, and people realizing states of attainment before that. And it's hard to qualify whether that is in fact true or not. We don't have the support for that. But we do know that there was just an incredible flowering of this forest tradition, and something that was definitely new was the association of intense meditation practice with a very strict, scrupulous approach to the Vinaya and to the ascetic practices. Now, those two things have become so unified in people's minds these days, and in our minds, that the forest tradition, one, keeps strict Vinaya, two, meditate. But that it seems to be something that really came into being through Ajahn Man and his disciples. So who are we talking about? There's Ajahn Man, and the monk who was originally his teacher but became his teaching partner, Ajahn Sao. And then there's a whole galaxy of big names, Lumpu Ted, Lumpu Kao, Lumpu Wan, all the Lumpus, Lumpu Li, Lumpu, I don't know, there's...
Who was actually from Ubon?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to say that in the sense that Ubon these days is a much truncated version of the Ubon of 100 years ago, that a number of the outlying areas of Ubon have now become provinces in their own right. And at one point, even the identity of Ubon as a province wasn't that clear-cut. It was more like southern Isan and northern Isan. So, but you could say that, Ajahn Man himself, Ajahn Sao, then Ajahn Li was from near Ajahn Mahamon's village, just about 30 kilometers north of Ubon. Ajahn Chah, of course, Ajahn Tongrat. No, I beg your pardon. Ajahn Tongrat was actually from Nakhon Phanom, but it's a little bit complicated because his family were from Ubon. And who else? Was it? Lumpu Kao, I think, was from Amnachara, and so many of them. Quite remarkable considering the population.
What was the population?
Well,
guess.
I would say that the population of Isan, when Ajahn Chah was born, 2-3 million, something like that. Maybe not so many. But it's scattered, just very small hamlets, hardly any communication between them. No big cities really. So probably less than that.